Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about a lot of different things that have happened over this past week, mainly that NCAA Sports Commission that has been set up by President Trump, will be co-chaired by Nick Saban and Cody Campbell. Will be a very interesting thing to watch. There's no doubt about that. And then a couple other things that have happened throughout the week, including Jackson Cantwell making his way down to Coral Gables, a huge pickup at offensive tackle for the Miami Hurricanes. But let's get into my post-spring top 25. I got into my top 10 last week. Thought about just releasing a blog with the entirety of it, but wanted to get into it just a little bit on the show. So thought I'd break it down. We'll roll through this relatively quickly just so we don't drag too long here. But just a reminder of where my top 10 is. I do have Penn State setting the pace. I think that's the safest team right now. I think adding guys like Trevor Pena and Amari Campbell in the spring portal cycle was huge for them. I think this team has everything going for them, and not necessarily a title or bust year. You got to make big time steps forward, though. I can tell you that, and it'll be a very interesting year up there in State College. But I got Penn State as my number one team. Texas right behind them. Have to feel good about what they have, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Cannot say enough about what Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill and all those guys can do. The offensive line is the one place that we'll have a question, and we'll actually probably get into that in next week's show. Probably get into some more specifics, get into the SEC, get into the Big Ten, talk about questions around those conferences. We'll talk about that in a little bit after this segment, but something to think about. Texas here at 2, love that team. A couple of little questions, but the talent level is obviously off the charts. Clemson here at number 3, incredible team, absolutely one that just has just about everything. There's not really a weak spot on that team, at least not a glaring one, and I think Gideon Davidson coming in as the freshman running back is going to have to be huge, but K. Klubnik with that trio of wide receivers. You have TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Avian Terrell, all of those guys on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be more than fine. Ohio State here at 4. Maybe a little bit high for some people. Fully understand that. They have the 2 best players in the country, as far as I'm concerned, in Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. For some reason forgot his last name there, but remarkable Ohio State team. I worry about the defensive line. That's the one area where I look at it now and say, not quite to the level that Ohio State usually is, but as of right now, an elite team, as long as Julian Sayin hits the way that they're talking about him right now, they'll be more than fine. Georgia at 5, again, one that could be a little bit high for some people. Kirby Smart's going to put a good team out there. I can almost promise you that. If they can get that offensive line downhill, if they can get that run game going, especially adding a guy like Josh McCray from Illinois in the spring portal cycle, they're going to be more than fine. And I think Gunnar Stockton's one of those guys that will shock a couple of people this upcoming season. Notre Dame, it sounds like CJ Carr will be taking over the quarterback duties there, but the reality is the run game and the defense that make me so excited. The back end of that defense is about as talented as you're going to find across the country. So many. Leonard Moore back there, an incredible guy going into his sophomore year that was already really good his freshman year. I think Jordan Clark's an incredible player, obviously. And then you have a young quarterback, you have a duo of running backs with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price that are going to be downright elite. LSU, love this LSU team. One of the teams that I buy into just about every year, and I'll do it once again this year. Garrett Nussmeier going into his 5th year at LSU, his 2nd year as the starter. You have Caden Durham, one of the more underrated running backs in the entire country, in my opinion. A wide receiver group that was much rebuilt throughout the portal, but an incredible group of guys. And the defense, just one more year of Blake Baker, have to feel really confident in what they have. Oregon, a team that I worry about a little bit in some different areas. I think the additions they have on the offensive line are very talented. They're also coming up from lower levels of college football. Will they be able to handle the energy, the intensity, the physicality of a Big Ten schedule? That will be something we'll have to watch very closely. Alabama, a team that I have some questions about kind of the behind the scenes, but love the wide receiver group they have, love the back end that they have. I think getting back Deontay Lawson was huge to that linebacker group that is a little bit closer to that Alabama linebacking core that we've been used to. A remarkable team, and a team that I think when you have Kalen DeBoer comfortable into going into his 2nd year, you're going to see some special things from Tuscaloosa. And then Arizona State rounds out my top 10, a team that's returning the 2nd most production of any team in the country. Really talented guys all over the place. The run game is the worry, but with Kyson Brown and Kanye Udo, I think they're going to be more than fine, replacing a guy like Cam Scadaboo. And then Jordan Tyson is just one of the best, maybe the very best wide receiver in the entire country. So that's my top 10. That's where we're sitting right now. But let's take this 5 at a time and go through the rest of these. And we'll start with 11 through 15. Illinois barely misses my top 10, a very, very good team. Luke Altmaier is back, got a little bit of a offer from Tennessee, but decided to stick up there for Illinois. And Malafrey, will be the running back down there, especially with Josh McCray moving on. Very talented kid, absolutely will be a huge piece for them. They have defenders that I think are going to make huge leaps going into their second or third year in the defense. And then the reality is, when Burt Belima tells me to believe in something, I'm going to believe in it. That's the reality. I think he's building something incredible over there, and I think the Illini is going to be a really fun team to watch. Maybe kind of that Indiana of this year. Obviously, a little bit more over the radar than Indiana was coming into the year, but at the end of the day, love this Illinois team. Cannot wait to see what they can do and possibly make a little bit of a CFP run. Miami, here at 12, definitely a team that is a big time question mark, but Carson Beck is plenty good to win you games and win you a lot of games, get you a ACC title, get to the CFP. The defense has to help him out. He is not going to save you the same way Cam Ward did. The defense needs to take a leap. I really trust the talent that they have, especially on the back end over there. But the reality of the matter is, Corey Heatherman's got to get in there, get everything in order. If he can, could be a really fun team and definitely a team that could win the ACC and maybe make a little bit more of a run in the CFP. Then you got Florida, a team that I understand being them being at 13 after what happened last year is a little bit crazy. It's a very good team. This is a team that has all the talent in the world. They have the quarterback that I tend to think is going to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the entire country this year. They have a wide receiver group that I think is about as good as you're going to find around the country. Adding Dallas Wilson at the very last minute in the recruiting class was huge. I think they have so much going for them going into this season, and I just think when you have a quarterback like that, you cannot bet against a team like that. So I love the Florida Gators. I think they're a team that last year, if you really look back at it and watch every single game they played, that's a good football team that just came up short in a couple of games. So I really like what Florida has. I think they're going to be really dangerous, and DJ Lagway has a lot to do with that. I'll be totally honest. Then you got Kansas State. It feels like everyone has just forgotten about Kansas State. Now, you will see them in a lot of top 25 polls, but Avery Johnson going into his second year as a starter, adding Lincoln Kerr, who's going to be one of the better tight ends in the entire country almost right away. And then Dylan Edwards, getting the most out of him at the running back position is going to be huge, especially with DJ Giddens moving on. I think Dylan Edwards could be one of the most special players in the entire Big 12, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Really like what this Kansas State team can do, and I think they're going to take a step forward after, I don't want to say a down year, but a year that left a little bit on the table, definitely for the Wildcats. And then rounding out my top 15, Texas A&M. An A&M team, Marcel Reed with a better wide receiver core, Le'Veon Moss actually healthy, which you saw a very considerable drop-off for how that team played when Le'Veon Moss was in the game, when he was not. It was a very different team. So that is a huge thing to get back from them. I think the defense returns quite a bit. They're 6th in returning production in the entire country. This is a team that has everything in front of them. There's no doubt about that. The defense should be getting better under Mike Elko, and they have every chance to make another CFP run. They also have every chance to possibly be another 8-4 season and be as frustrated as they were at the end of last year, this year as well. But really like what A&M has, and I think that top-level talent is just downright elite. 16 through 20 starts with Iowa State. Love what Iowa State is doing right about now. I think this is a team that has a lot going for them. And I understand losing Jaden Higgins, losing Jalen Knoll is a very, very nervous thing, but you still have Abu Sama and Carson Hansen in that backfield. I think the addition of Chase Sewell from ECU is downright huge. Xavier Townsend coming over from UCF is another one that I absolutely love. And I think when you really get down to it, Rocco Becht is one of the better quarterbacks you're going to find in the entire country. Not just in the Big 12, might be the best quarterback in the Big 12, but I want to go back on that. There are a couple of different guys that I could put in that position, but Rocco Becht is very, very talented. A lot of different things going for this Iowa State team, and I trust Matt Campbell. There's no doubt about that. I think it's going to be a really fun team that very well could be one of those teams in the CFP. Ole Miss here at 17. I can't put them higher than this because I just don't know. I don't know what team they're going to have. I don't know how the transfer portal guys are going to work out. I love Austin Simmons. I think the talent level is incredible. I think he has a little bit more zip than Jackson Dart did. I think he'll be able to handle some of those RPO looks that Jackson Dart didn't necessarily struggle with at times, but at times wouldn't necessarily be as crisp. I think Austin Simmons can do that, but you're replacing a lot. That's just the reality. Caden Lee coming back is huge as the big-time wide receiver, but quite a few guys that you're going to have to replace. It'll be a battle for South Carolina. There's no doubt about that. Moving down, or excuse me, for Ole Miss. Now we'll move down to South Carolina 18. Lenore Sellers is a very real Heisman contender. There's no doubt about that. There's quite a bit of turnover on that defense. Now, they have Dylan Stewart, so that solves a lot of the issues that they're going to have. There's no doubt about that. But losing Kyle Kennard, losing Nick Eamon Ward, losing Demetrius Knight, all those guys are huge, and they're all at three different parts of the defense. So it's going to be a battle. They're still trying to figure out if Rashul Faison is going to be able to go, the transfer running back that they were able to get from any number of schools at this point. Can't remember where he was last, but an incredible player nonetheless, and absolutely a guy that will make a lot of plays. I believe out of Utah State, if I'm not mistaken, but an incredible player. Will he be able to play is the big time question around there in Columbia. And then you move on to 19, Oklahoma. Oklahoma to me has the most ability to jump up here. They also have quite an ability to move down, if I'm being totally honest with you. John Mateer is a special player, plain and simple. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the entire country. He is going to make that offensive line look a whole lot better than they did last year, plain and simple. Regardless if they play better than they played last year or not, they will look better because that quarterback is just that special. Now, if the offensive line can get 30% better, 40% better, they could be a really tough offense to slow down. You add Jay Knott right next to him in that backfield. You have wide receivers like Deion Burks coming back to that team. It could be a really fun Oklahoma team. Now, obviously, that offensive line and defensive line, really, I still have big time questions about, but the reality is that takes a moderate step forward. You could have a really special offense that could be very, very hard to stop. And then you got Indiana here at 20. Fernando Mendoza enters where why am I blanking on his name? Where Curtis Rourke, excuse me, where Curtis Rourke kind of left off. Remarkable talent, getting a lot of eyes from the NFL scouts. So I think from a talent level, he will be better than Curtis Rourke. Will he be able to play in those close games? Will he be able to play kind of even the way Curtis Rourke was able to throughout the season? That's going to be a big time battle. I really like what this team does. A lot of new transfers coming in, and that'll be another question mark for them. But you got to love Kurt Zignetti. You got to love Fernando Mendoza. And I think this team is going to be more than fine. Maybe not a CFP team, but definitely a team in the conversation in the Big Ten going into this year. And then we'll round it out, and we'll start with the Auburn Tigers here at 21. Another team, kind of like Florida, that has all the talent in the world. If you look back at last year, they were a top 25 or 20 offense and defense, total offense and total defense. They went 7-5, and it's just because they turned the ball over every single game in every single important part. The other reality is you have a quarterback coming in that likes to turn the ball over. Jackson Arnold made quite a few mistakes, and some of that had to do with his offensive line that should be infinitely better this year at Auburn than it was at Oklahoma last year. But the reality is you have to get over that hump, especially because you won't have Jarquez Hunter right next to him. You won't have that security blanket that you can hand off to, and he will give you 5 yards, keep the drive going. You will have a run game. There's no doubt about that. But the offensive line is going to have to pick up some slack. I'm sure Jackson Arnold will be involved in that in some way. It'll be a very interesting team, but the talent level is downright elite. Adding Eric Singleton, I think Jackson Arnold is a big-time upgrade from the quarterback position they've had last year. I think they got a really good team, and I think they're one of those teams that maybe you're not thinking about right now from the SEC, but they could explode onto the scene pretty quickly. Georgia Tech, here at number 2, a team that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people are getting into, a lot of people are watching very closely, and I fully understand why. Haynes King coming back is downright huge. You also have a guy in Aaron Philo sitting on the bench that can win you plenty of games. I can promise you that. And then Jamal Haynes in that backfield as well. Malik Rutherford, Eric Rivers on the outside. It's about as good as you're going to find around the ACC. I think it's a really, really good group, and I think it's a team that, in terms of culture, you're not going to find a more solid one around the country. Incredible, incredible group. Brent Key has his guys ready to roll every single game, and it's a team that's very used to playing a top 10 toughest schedule. They're kind of right wedged in there with the SEC teams. They're all the way down at number 48 this year. So they avoid a lot of those teams like the Louisvilles that we'll talk about here in a second, or like, I don't think they avoid Syracuse, but they avoid quite a few teams. They avoid Miami in the ACC this year, so this could be a very dangerous Georgia Tech team, maybe just a CFP team if they get things right. And then Louisville right behind them, a team that I absolutely love. And I'm getting really, really in love with at least the idea of Louisville. Not quite in love with Louisville yet, but adding Miller Moss, I think he fits Jeff Brom perfectly. I think he's someone that can do incredible things in that offense. The run game with Isaac Brown and just about every other freshman running back they had last year is going to be really, really fun to watch as they progress. I really like this team, and I think that defense is just always going to be dangerous. You are losing Ashton Gillette, and that's going to be huge, but a remarkable team, and Jeff Brom always has those guys ready to roll. So really like this Louisville team, and I think Miller Moss is one of the bigger portal acquisitions that no one's really talking about. Sawyer Robertson is maybe the best quarterback in the country that no one's talking about. An incredible, incredible player. He might be the best quarterback in the Big 12. I said Rocco Becht earlier. I might lean Sawyer Robertson's direction. But regardless, remarkable quarterback. The duo of Pendergrass as well in Washington, elite running back duo that they're going to be able to build with. And then Dave Aranda's defense just keeps making strides every single year, every single week of last year. Just kept taking that little step forward. I think it's going to take a rather big step forward this year, and I think they could be a team that could find themselves smack dab in the middle of that Big 12 conversation. And then Texas Tech here at 10. It's a team that, or here at 25, excuse me. It's a team that I am having a really hard time not falling in love with. Baron Morton is tons of fun. Really like what he brings to this offense at quarterback. The talent around him on the outside is going to be plenty fine. Probably about as elite as you're going to find around the Big 12, except for maybe Colorado at that wide receiver position. And then you got guys on the offensive and defensive line that just don't really look like everyone else in the conference. They look a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, and Cody Campbell has a lot to do with that, like we just talked about. But the reality is, this is a Texas Tech team that I really like. I snuck them in here to the top 25 because I think they could do some really special things. But a couple of teams are missing from here, and let's talk about those teams real quick. SMU might be the most glaring one that is not on here. I think losing Brashard Smith is a bigger deal than people think, and I think losing some of those D linemen that they lost is absolutely huge. I just don't necessarily, I'm not smitten with this SMU team at least yet. We'll see what happens. Still very much love Kevin Jennings and what they can do, but I could see a little bit of a falling back down to earth for SMU going into 2025. Iowa, I just can't do it. I'll just be totally honest. I can't do it. Love Mark Gronowski. Think it's going to be a really fun team, but can't put them in my top 25 with the offense that they have. Michigan, love the idea of this team. I can't back a freshman quarterback, at least until I've seen him play. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll vault all the way up into the top 15 after that first game, but we'll see what happens there. And then BYU was missing off here. It's just something I can't trust them to do again. I don't necessarily love the team. I don't think they're quite as talented as some of the other teams in the Big 12, and I think they got quite a bit of luck to find their way where they were last year. I just don't see it happening again, even though they're a very talented team and they returned quite a few guys, including Jake Retzlaff as their quarterback. I just can't buy into it. I don't know why. I just don't necessarily love BYU going into this year. But that'll do it for this edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. Went a little bit longer than I was hoping to, but quite a bit to talk about. And we'll get into even more next week. We'll probably start getting into some SEC Big Ten breakdowns after spring, get into some big-time questions as you head into fall camp, a lot of different things. Maybe we'll do SEC one day, Big Ten one day, and then keep moving on down the line. We'll get into all of that as we get on over the next couple of weeks. But thank you once again for listening. Please subscribe, please comment, please like, please do all of the things. Even if you're commenting that you don't like the show, I'll take what I can get at this point. So please do comment, please like, please subscribe to the show, and I'll be back next week. We'll start doing a lot more content, maybe some individual videos going out here pretty soon, but as of right now, we'll just we'll be back here the same time on Wednesday, and I will talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening.